Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we've been doing that.
Hey, gang. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for joining me again today. So, I'm just getting started on day 2. I am painting at a bridal show. That means convention center. Here, let me show you what a bridal show looks like. There's looking one way down the aisle. Here's across the aisle from me, all kinds of wedding vendors. This is a small, on purpose, a small wedding show. They called it Fine Arts Wedding Show, and that's part of what made me decide to participate, is they're trying to make it a little more artsy than the typical, and they treated me really well. Oh, and while I'm at it, so here's my booth. I showed you this some if you were with me yesterday. Those are all prints, copies of my paintings, and some of them, alas, are peeling off their backing, which is not good. I paid good money to have people do that. I might have to take some of these back and ask them to redo it. Forgive me just a minute while I run around and do some housekeeping. My wife Nancy will be joining me here in a little while. All right, let's get legal or official. Daily Art Adventure number 804. Dark details in transparent oil. Click, clack. There we go. While I'm back here, a quick sip of coffee. All right, so dark details, and of course the word dark infers transparent. I know I say that over and over and over again. This is the world of Dan Nelson. This is the world of of classical painting. I'll call it that. Which is we, the Western world, essentially abandoned classical painting for much of the 20th century because we were learning that the canvas is flat. There's a whole, I could launch into a whole historical lecture on that. I'll forbear at the moment.
Hey, Mom.
So we were learning that the canvas was flat, so in conjunction with that, of course, we got away from transparent painting. I believe that we have now, the Western world and artists of the Western world, have in fact learned the lesson very well that the canvas is indeed flat. Those of you who are not artists, you're saying, what are you talking about? That's right. If I get inspired to give a lecture on that subject, I will, but at the moment I don't feel so inspired. So anyway, before that, let me back up. So I Dan Nelson, paint differently from the great majority of my peers. You know, I did not learn to paint this way in college. In fact, I didn't learn to paint in college. I was an art major, but they didn't teach us how to paint. Anyway, that's another subject. But almost all artists of my generation and the generation 3 before me and the generation or so following me, they all paint mostly with flat opaque, straight out of the tube paints, mostly. All right, now, nothing wrong with that, per se, except that transparent colors are more interesting than opaque ones. And so I'm the odd man out, so to speak, but don't feel sorry for me because I'm not humble about the subject. lest you think I'm being humble or something. Oh, let's get rid of that illusion right away. I paint, on the other hand, I paint like almost every great painter you know before like 1890 painted like me with layers of transparent color. Rubens, Fragonard, you know, I'm just trying to list some. I'm trying to avoid saying Rembrandt. I failed. I failed at not saying Rembrandt. Anyway, they paid layers and layers and layers of transparent color and then opaque on top. That's the way I paint, okay? So it's unusual in our world, but not unusual in art history. There, that's all I want to say about that, I think. At the moment, I'm using a purple-ish color. I got a couple different blues, phthalo and ultramarine on my brush, along with permanent rose. I don't take notes. Do not write that down. Do not say, oh, I want to know what color he uses. No. I say that quite a bit. Let me explain what I mean by that. Why do I say, oh, don't write that down? Because if I'm trying to help you avoid a bad detour in your painting journey, if you're an artist, don't get started down the road of thinking that you, in the world of color, that you learn stuff by recipe. You don't. You learn stuff by eyeball. That's how you learn to mix paint. I mean, every once in a while, I suppose you can learn a little tip here and a little tip there that helps you with color mixing. But 99% of color mixing is eyeball brain, not language brain. Does that make sense? Okay, so don't grab a notebook and say, oh, what did he say? I'm just telling you, when I tell you what colors are on my brush, it's just more a matter of curiosity than anything. It's not a formula. It's certainly not a magic. Anyway, so I've got a purple-ish color on my brush. Because and the reason that it's not just dark black, that's spelled B-L-E-C-K. The reason it's not just dark black, which is, I do that as well sometimes, a neutral dark color. The reason it's not that is because whenever possible, we want to infuse more color into our paintings, not less, generally speaking. Generally speaking, our eyes would rather see more, not less. Does that make sense?
I know you know. Yeah, I know. That's why.
Now, of course, every rule can be broken, as you know, so even that one. Generally, we want more color. There are exceptions, but you got to know the general before you know when to do the exception. I started this painting yesterday. Oh, good grief, you guys are chatting up a storm already. Hello, Moraid. Hello, Lady Grammy. Hello. There are exceptions, but you got to know the general before you do the exception. Hello, Barbara, again. I don't know if have I had many commissions from this week? We don't know yet. We have a decent number of names and addresses captured. In fact, oh my goodness, I only made but so many pages of blanks, you know. Yeah, so we're doing good. We have no idea if these are hot prospects or cold fish. Dead fish prospects, Barbara. Thanks for asking. But I do feel good about the show. I have a good feeling about the people we've talked to. They feel like, a number of them feel like serious prospects. So, thanks for asking. So again, just for anybody who's fairly new to my channel, who may be watching, why do I say if it's dark, it's transparent, and if it's transparent, it's dark? In my world, in the world of classical painting, like I was talking about earlier, darks are always achieved like a watercolorist. So if you do watercolor, then you understand this principle intuitively. I don't even need to explain it. You just go shrug your shoulders and say, yeah, of course, what else? One of the reasons, and there's many ways I could describe why this is so, but one of the answers is because if you don't do dark and transparent, then you create mud, right? And again, I've talked about mud so many times. Don't know if I want to launch into it again. There's several things in the art world, in the art community, if you will, that are called mud. Several different things are called mud. Okay. The only one of the definitions that I care about is the one that's a bit of a mystery. The mud that I want to avoid is the mud that makes you, after you've finished your painting, you look at it and there's a part of it that looks strange, muddy, chalky. It doesn't, the color doesn't sing, and you can't figure out why. Someday I will show you. I have a painting in my attic that I did in 1999, I think, or 98, right, way in the twilight of my oil painting career. Don't be to say I started painting in 1999 is technically, oil painting in 99 is technically true, but it's quite deceiving. I was a full-time professional artist for decades. Before that, I just so happened I did everything but oil painting. Okay, so I don't want to be misleading and say, oh, I just started painting 20 years ago. No, I started painting 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago, but not oil painting. Anyway, there is a painting. I've kept it. It's in my attic somewhere, and it was part of my storytelling painting career, which I did one of those this past week. Maybe some of you saw the starry, Christmassy kind of thing, and I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, a lot of fun. It's not my normal at all. It's a fun diversion for me. Anyway, this painting in my attic was part of the storytelling, and it had a bunch of, it was like knights in shining armor kind of thing on horses attacking a castle. Okay, so that's, and the view is from inside the castle, so the knights are coming in toward the viewer, and it's quite a dramatic scene. Horses, knights on horseback, maybe 4, 5, 6 horses in it, I don't remember, and 4, 5, 6 knights and so forth. Attacking a dragon, by the way. So, right, full-on fantasy fun stuff. Anyway, one of the horses, for some reason, it was a particular color brown. And this is, again, 20 years ago or more, 21 or 2 years ago. And when this one horse just didn't look right. It was like the color, I couldn't figure out. Now, in hindsight, I know exactly what was wrong with it. I had applied, in order to make the horse a darker brown than it was, I used an opaque brown to make it darker than it was. Right? Sounds easy, sounds simple enough. And it was a disaster. I never did fix it fully. And it's just kind of funny to me now that that it was such a mystery. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. So that's the kind of mud I care about. The kind that makes you scratch your head and say, I don't get it, but that one color doesn't look right. Am I making sense to you? That's the kind. Anyway, and that kind of mud, again, forgive me, some of you have heard this lecture so many times. I can't believe you're still watching. That is the result of the misapplication of opacity. That is using an opaque paint. That usually means it has a little bit of white in it, or yellow ochre, or cad yellow or something like that. Using an opaque paint to make something darker. And that's what looks muddy. All right. So the alternative is, if you want something darker, as I said, you do what I'm doing now. You use transparent paint, like a watercolorist. All right. Let's zoom in here a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. Thank you for your kind words, Mairead. Hello, Monique in Netherlands. Good to have you on board. Barbara. I went home for some reason last night.
Thank you so much.
Oh no, it wasn't at home. My wife went out. My wife and I went out for a little date. Went and saw Star Wars. I don't know. This is not one of my more intellectual pursuits, but doggone, we really enjoyed it. We really enjoyed this. So there you go. We really enjoyed this Star Wars movie, and even my wife did, which is pleasant, because I'm a little bit more the fantasy guy than she is. And anyway, I was telling her about the day, Barbara, and I was again chuckling at you guys, our happy little band of, I guess, Dan Nelson followers. I don't know what else to call you, and reading some of your chats and laughing. Oh man, as you know, I don't catch all your comments during the broadcast. I don't know if I should spend more time, but anyway, and I was reading some of them. So Barbara, I was telling Nancy about some of my conversation with you, or about you anyway, about you, how you're reluctant to show your face in your broadcasts. Anyway, which you should not be. Anyway. And speaking of yesterday's chats, I haven't seen Uncle's name here yet this morning. We don't know what to do with that Uncle 60, do we? Oh, there's Uncle. Hey, you asked a question about can acrylic paints go bad, and the answer is absolutely yes. In fact, I have a situation right now with my bigger easel, my next bigger easel from this one, the one I was using on New Year's Eve this past Tuesday. And yeah, one of the containers, at least one of the containers in that kit has got rancid. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, so believe it or not, acrylic paints, in a container. So I've never heard of, I can't imagine it happening in a tube of acrylic paints, because I don't know how the bacteria would get inside the tube. But anyway, yeah, if you do like I do, and you mix acrylics ahead of time and put them in a jar or something, they can go rancid. I don't remember it ever happening before now. No, as I think about it, I think it probably has. Anyway, it smells rotten. It smells like rotten eggs. It smells bad. Even the other night when I was out painting outside on New Year's Eve, I kept my jar of red paint closed because it stank, even outdoors. So this last week when I was in the art store, I bought a new bottle of red and a big bottle of, anyway, going to mix up a new batch and throw out that old stuff. So there you go. Can acrylic paints go rancid? The answer is yes. Who'd have thunk it? What a strange thing. One other quick comment. I got here yesterday and discovered that I didn't have any liquid with me. Oh boy. That was a moment of near panic. So I'm using Galkid gel. Can you see that? Yeah. And it's an oil painting medium. And it says on the back, increases transparency, that's good. Speeds drying, that's good. And retains impasto. Okay, so it'll stay thick if you make it thick. But now we know. I've had that stuff around for a long time and used it very rarely. Anyway, so I used it yesterday, and we now know. I finished painting about 5 o'clock yesterday and got here at noon today, and no, the painting is not dry. So there we go. So Galkid, what's it called? Galkid gel. I'm sorry, let me look at it again. Yeah, Galkid gel. Made by Gamblin and Alkyd, obviously. Gamblin, G for Gamblin, Alkyd for Alkyd. So it's a fast dry medium, but it's not nearly as fast as liquid that I'm used to. So just in case anybody wants to know. The nice thing about it is it doesn't smell, whereas the liquid smells, which of course makes sense. The only reason any painting product can be dry fast is because it's off-gassing is the term as I understand it. The only way it can be fast dry is, again, if the molecules are flying off it at a rapid rate into the surrounding atmosphere. So that means it's going to be smelly, right? In fact, Alkyd paints technically means they're off-gassing more quickly because they dry more quickly. But I certainly can't smell an Alkyd paint. But I can smell liquid all right. So there you go. For what it's worth, Galkyd Light or Galkyd Gel. They do make Galkyd Light as well, which is thin, runny stuff. So I was very relieved yesterday to discover that at least I had the Galkyd. And as you know, this is a classic example of then fat over lean. If having started the painting with the Galkyd, it would be a disaster to finish the painting with liquid, right? Because you always want slow dry on top of fast dry, not the other way around. Hey, sweetie.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good.
Mwah. Warmed up a little bit. I'll take this off in my sparkles.
Oh yeah,
show.
no, it's chilly in here today.
It's really cold outside.
Yeah.
I wish I could be wearing, well, my other clothes. I didn't wear, have winter.
Well, thanks. Nancy just showed up. That's the woman I just kissed. You could hear, but you couldn't see. Sorry, too much information, I'm sure. Oh, wait, okay, hang on, I'm missing some. You guys are chatting up. Hello, Warren and Tony. Dan kissing the girls. Do I ever do Q&A sessions? Good question. I mean, sort of, in a way, every broadcast is Q&A. The only problem is, of course, as you can see, I don't necessarily catch every chat. That would require an assistant to do nothing but keep track of the chats. Maybe we can convince my wife to do that, Nancy, someday. Today, probably not today, because she's supposed to be talking to potential customers. but that's a great idea. I'd love to do Q&A. So go ahead. Who was it who asked that question? Lady Grammy. Yeah, go ahead and shoot me with a question, and if I catch it, I'll certainly answer it.
Oh, hi. How are you today? Oh, that's just...
Oh, good. Kaz, thank you for mentioning that. He went into Lowe's and got a respirator. Good. Glad to hear it. That's sort of the kind of thing we should all be taking more seriously, and generally we don't. So good for you. Glad to hear it makes a good difference. Again, for those of you who just tuned in late, I am painting at a bridal show, the Raleigh Convention Center, downtown Raleigh, North Carolina, my hometown. Thank you for joining me. I am so blessed. I promise I'm the only vendor in the whole building who's actually able to get productive money-making work done during a bridal show. Tell me that's not cool, amazing, blessing. This painting is for Kelsey. I don't know her. We've only corresponded through email, and her wedding was last summer up in upstate New York somewhere. I don't even know what the setting is. It's some kind of industrial. Oh, here, let me move you over here just for a second and show you the photograph again like I did yesterday. There it is. So there's the photograph she sent me. I tweaked it in Photoshop so that the ratio is exactly the same as my canvas. That helps a lot. And this is a close-up of them in almost the same pose as they are here. So those are the main two photographs I'm looking from. Okay. So I'm very thankful that I can get good work done while I sell my stuff with the help of my wonderful wife, Nancy. So the last layer that I did before this one that I'm doing right now was yesterday evening, late afternoon, early evening, was pencils. I did a bunch of pencil everywhere, mostly because I just like the effect, the texture, the scratchiness. I like the juxtaposition, to use a big word. I like the juxtaposition of the scratchy pencil in juxtaposition to the squishy paint, if I can call it that. Smushy paint lines versus scratchy pencil lines. It turns out, and I didn't put it in these terms when I started using the pencil 3 or 4 years ago, but it turns out that the pencil, for me, is just a crazy, admittedly unconventional way to do edges, to balance scratchiness with soft edges, soft versus hard edges. So I use pencils as one of my tools, if you will, devices, tricks for creating the degree of scratchiness. I use the untechnical term, the degree of scratchiness that I prefer in my paintings. In fact, that is one of the big differences. As I look back over my paintings, say 4 years ago, some of which were good, some of which I'm not abjectly embarrassed of. Even though I think I'm definitely a better painter than I was 4 years ago. Well, yeah, let me rephrase that. There's no question I'm a better painter than I was 4 years ago. But one of the chief differences is higher degree of scratchiness in my recent paintings, and I like it. I like it better. As I look back at my older paintings, I go, ooh, too smooshy. Again, to use the technical term, smooshy versus scratchy. And so last thing I did was pencils. I'm doing dark details. At the end of this stage, at the end of this phase, I want to have all of my darks in place. That is to say, I want adequate darknesses. I think that's it. Enough areas of dark and enough, and the areas dark enough. But I want some, what I call my 8, 9, 10s. I want all my 8, 9, 10s in places. Very few 10s, as you can imagine. Do you understand my language? I'm imagining a 10-degree grayscale. White, 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 and black, 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 black at the other end. 0 and 10. If it is actually 0, then it's an 11-degree grayscale. Forgive me, but I digress. So at the end of this phase, I want all my 8, 9, 10s. That means black, almost black, and nearly black. All right? Because, again, I think, given the choice, our eyes would rather see yes value than no value. I don't mean none, but I mean, given the choice, our eyes would rather see a full range of values rather than a limited range. Now, not everybody agrees with me on that. There's some famous big dog painters who would say something like, 0s and 10s never appear in nature. And I think, generally speaking, they're correct. I think that sort of scientific analysis is exactly correct. Generally speaking, and they would probably even say 0, 1s and 2s and 8, 9, 10s don't appear in nature. Everything we really see is in the middle. So, but I think our eyes enjoy a full range of values. One of my favorite things I would like to point to in that regard would be the prints, the black and white prints of Ansel Adams. Mid to late 20th century pioneer photographer. Think of Yosemite, his Yosemite prints. Just Google him, and part of the jaw-dropping beauty of Ansel Adams's prints was the range of values. He had bits on his photographs that were 0, pure white, and other parts that were just absolutely velvet black, and everything in between. So that's what I think. That's what I aspire to. And no, it may not be realism per se, and of course you and I both know that my primary task here is not realism. I'm an abstract realist, not a realist. The next thing then, after this, and I may end this broadcast and before I start the next phase, I'm not sure yet. But the next phase will be either final edit, which means light opaque highlights, or it will be a fuzz layer, and then light opaque highlights. So I don't know which way I'm going to go with that yet. The jury is out. So if you need to leave us, you know where I'm going. I might do a fuzz layer next, or I might go straight to Final Edit and do fuzz later. It is definitely easier to do fuzz when this dark stuff is dry. I do it all the time when it's wet, so it's not a necessity, but there's no question it's easier. Those of you who may be imitating my technique to some degree, there's a tip for you. If you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself, before you do the fuzz layer, wait a day or whatever it is, depending on the medium you're using. Wait a day for this dark stuff to dry, because then you're not going to smear it around. It can be done, it's just not as much fun, not as easy. Right. So I have managed to blather myself into the end of another phase. No, hang on. I think I'm going to do a little bit of medium dark, some of this blue stuff outside the window. So I don't know if you can tell what's going on here. These are windows, floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out on some kind of industrial complex. Thank you, sir. It looks to me like a natural gas processing, like some kind of refinery. But I sure wouldn't guarantee it. Thank you, man.
No problem.
Oh, good. 12/12. I know I don't have a wedding schedule for 12/12, so. Are you Justin?
Yes.
Excellent. Good to meet you. Thanks for taking. Thank you. I'm Dan. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Congratulations
too,
to you.
No this is Beyonce, Janae.
Excellent. Hi, Danae.
Janae.
I'm Dan.
Nice to
You're
meet
beautiful.
you.
I'd love to paint you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Did you take one of these?
No, I didn't.
No, thank
Yeah,
you.
just for there's some information on there.
Yes, for sure, because we love what you're doing. 'Cause it's
Thank you.
So would you? Oh, you would do it off of a picture.
No, I come and paint live.
Oh.
Yeah, I just happen to be doing this.
Okay.
I can do it after too, but no, I paint. I dress just like this, and I'm part of the razzmatazz at your reception. I'm part of the
I
entertainment.
love that. Oh, that's so cool. That's,
Is your wedding around here somewhere?
yes.
Excellent.
We're having it somewhere in the 919. Yeah.
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah.
Yes,
Excellent.
that's cool. That
Well,
looks
thank you.
really pretty.
Congratulations.
Thank
All the best to
so
you.
much.
I know. That's why I was staring at. I was like, I really
Very
like that.
detailed.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
up here, so this right here, like, look at this. I don't want to touch it.
Thanks for your patience while I sell myself over here. All right, I think I'm going to do some of this blue stuff. So mid-tone, not as dark as what I've been doing. The industrial stuff outside the window before I move on to the next layer. And I think I will. I will end this broadcast and then start another one. So if you want to be notified when I start broadcasting, and I'll take a little break. If you want to be notified, then be sure to hit the bell. On YouTube. It's not the same way it used to be. It used to be that if you just subscribe to somebody's channel, that YouTube would let you know. But it's not that way anymore. So if you want to receive a notification, some kind of ding or or drop down dialog box on your phone, then hit the bell and you'll be notified when I come back. I don't know if you can hear the musicians in the background. Lovely music. Harp at the moment. Harp, piano, violin, viola, and so forth. I was talking to one of the musicians this morning before the show started and congratulated her because last night when I got home, I had a friendly notice from YouTube saying that I had once again violated copyright. I chuckle because it doesn't really, they don't kick me off the air and so forth. I'll have to be a lot more careful here. Real soon I'm going to start broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. And Facebook is a whole lot more ornery about this than YouTube is. Anyway, their computer, their little listening computer, thought that they heard Andre Rieu in the background. R-I-E-U, I think this is how you spelled. Anyway, so congratulations to the violinists. They were good enough that the computer thought it was Andre Rieu. So that's pretty good. Pretty good for them. The computer was wrong. It was not Andre Rieu. It was a live violinist. Nonetheless, the computer thought I was playing copyrighted music. So just a funny little, that kind of thing happens quite a bit. It just means I can't make ad revenue from that particular video, which is, unless I protest, which is not even worth my time to do. So I'm not going to worry about it. Anyway, the music has been lovely at this event, and I think the organizers of this show, they called it a fine arts wedding venue, and they organized it. They wanted it to be a little bit different from the typical bridal show, which is part of the reason I signed up. And it's smaller than most. And they tried to, what's the word? All of a sudden it's gone out of my head. Anyway, pre-qualify is not the right word, but they tried to be fussy about who they allowed into the show. Good for them. Good for them for trying. I would say a typical bridal show is, there could be 30, 40, or 50 photographers, hundreds of venues. And they felt like, the organizers have done many shows over the years, they felt like it's so overwhelming that all the brides go home completely confused. So they were hoping to try a different style. They've been disappointed with the attendance, but nothing ventured, nothing gained is what I'd like to tell them. Thanks for trying. Oh, my wife just stuck her phone in my ear where she's listening. My wife, who's standing right here, is listening. She was listening to following my broadcast. All of a sudden, I had my voice in my ear. That was rather disturbing. All right, I'm nearly finished with the dark transparent details phase. More Galkid. And I'm sorry I'm missing all your wonderful chats. Oh, Nancy left a chat. Thank you, Nancy. How many do I do in a year? Thank you, Nancy, for answering some of these questions. For the last several years, I've done 21, 2 or 3 weddings, but in 2019, I only did 11 weddings, which was quite alarming. In case you want to know, no, that was not enough. That was a huge hit, and I don't know what happened. I don't know why that happened. All I can say is I'm scrambling to make that not happen again this year. So there you go. The life of an artist not for the faint of heart. I'm cheating at the moment. I'm going back to doing a glaze. I just realized I didn't. This area here, this blue background was too bright. So as I head into the final edit layer, I don't want to be finding that something underneath is not lined up. As I said, at the end of this phase, at the end of this stage right here, for the most part, I want my darks to be dark enough. Right? Now, of course, I can cheat. I mean, I'm cheating right now by doing glazing, cheating the system, so to speak, my system, by doing darks. But all right, I'm going to call that good enough. I'm going to end this broadcast. By the way, I'm not finished with the bride and groom. I've got them to a certain degree of finish. I don't know if I'll work on them more. Let me show you their picture. There's the painting, and here's actually the photograph that I'm working from is terribly pixelated, but I have a larger version of them here, and I'm using this for their features. And I feel like I've got them good enough for this show, good enough for today. I will probably, if I have time at the end of the day, I'll work on them more. But they just may go home with me like that, and I'll finish them next week. All right. Thanks for all your chats. Sorry I didn't get to answer all of them. Way to go, Lady Grammy. I see your painting. I guess, does that mean you're a grandmother? Is that what Lady Grammy means? That's cute. Thanks for your chats. Sorry I didn't get to answer. Thank you, Barbara, for the encouragement. I appreciate that. All right, so break time. When I come back, it will be, for some reason, I'm going to incorporate the fuzz into the final layer today. I'm not going to do a separate fuzz layer. I don't know why, this is just intuitive. I'm going to go straight to final edit with fuzz. All right, but that's coming back in a little while. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. Fun to have you here. Whoops, I should turn this so I'm not showing my neighbor quite so much, shouldn't I? She's not paying to be streamed. That's not what I mean. I'm more concerned about violating her privacy. I mean, you'd rather see my bald head. I'm one of those men who is keenly aware of how bald he is and that because of this. So don't worry, I suffer no delusions about how much hair I don't have on the top of my head. As I said to Barbara yesterday, though. But you guys didn't know me when I was 40 and 30 and full head of hair. So. All right. Bye. I'll be back in a bit. Bye-bye.